Hey everybody, it's Brian from Cruisin with the Colemans. We today are installing brand new upgraded lithium batteries into our rig. Thanks to Newpowa. They have supplied all of the materials for us that we needed to do this, with the exception of the batteries, which we purchased from them at cost. However, that said, even though they gave us all the stuff, they have no control over the content that we're posting today. Everything that we're saying is our opinion, and with their assistance in getting the install put together. So we are starting with two 12-volt, 100 amp hour Newpowa batteries. They're lithium LiFePO4 batteries. We also have the Newpowa Powall 2000 watt pure sine wave inverter. This is gonna hook us all up. We are inside the RV now in the bedroom. I have built this little frame for my batteries. Now, I built it as a double decker. We're only putting in 2 batteries, but our plan is that we probably at some point will add 2 more batteries. So I went ahead and built the frame to house 4 batteries. The lid still closes and there's plenty of room in here for the connections, and I'm gonna put a tabletop on this if I add 2 more batteries down the road. They're strapped in with a nylon strap that I picked up at a hardware store, and haven't connected them yet because the next project is to put the inverter in. So the inverter, made by Newpowa also, you just have to screw these little brackets on. A lot of people will put their inverter on the floor like this. The problem is when I'm plugging things into it, now I have to run extension cords out of my pass-through, which means the door is going to be open, and I just don't want the look of that. I want this to be a little cleaner. So I'm going to mount the inverter here on this wall and have it peeking out so that I've got access all the time to the power outlets that are here. That's going to involve taking out this outlet and moving it down and putting the inverter right here. So the first thing I've done is I'm going to unscrew all of this, take it out, mark a new hole down here, move it down below, and then mark a hole here for the inverter. I'm going to have to put a little piece of 1x2 so that it sticks out, and then I'll just fold it right in. The cleanest way to do this is actually going to be to take this panel off so that I can make more precise cuts. It only involved doing a couple of screws. The other thing I forgot to mention though, this door right here that I mentioned that I could have used for putting things in, the extension cords, this door we added. Link that video also down in the description and up above. We put these doors in, so you might not have access to under here that's quite as easy, meaning that in order to plug in, you'd have to lift the bed up and have the extension cord running out from underneath the bed, which is another good reason to go ahead and mount this and cut it in so that it's got a finished look to it. All right, let's get going. I have my holes cut for my outlet and for my inverter. Now I just have to make sure that the inverter is going to fit in the hole. Make sure I measured correctly. I did. So that's the way it's going to stick out, just like the outlet will right above it. This is an unfinished edge, but we were able to get from our dealer, Coach from Apex, tape that matches the wood grain. This might be hard to find on your RV, especially if it's an older model. We've got some links in Amazon below for some tape that we used in the past that's very, very similar in color. So I'm just going to put a piece of this around the edge just to finish this edge off. I'm not going to do it on this one because this will be covered with the outlet cover, but there's not a cover for this. So I'm just going to take the edge off to make it pretty. I have the edges of my opening taped up. I've set it back in place. Now it is just time to use my brad nailer and to nail this back on. When I bolt the inverter into this wall under the bed, I'm only going into this thin luan. So I've got to have a stud here to screw into. So I've measured my height from the other side, measured my height here, marked this is where the screws are going to be on the inverter, and now I'm just going to screw in these couple of 1x2 studs. There we go. Now I just have to put in screws on the other side, and I'll be ready to bolt it in place from the inside. So now here you can see I've marked on the inside where my screws are going to go, my bolts are going to go, and I'm going to put a stud here on the inside also. So that's going to help with 2 things. One, it's going to help build this out to where it needs to be so that it doesn't rattle against the wall, but it's also going to give me added support. And since the bolts are going through it, I really just need a screw here to hold it in place while I'm getting it there. I've put my panel back on. I've got my studs on this side to help shim this out. And I've put the bolts for the bottom in place so I have something to set it on. Now I'm just gonna set this down into place. Hopefully those two bolts line up. Hey, look at that, they do. Set those on there. Go ahead and pre-drill that. The inverter did come with bolts for bolting it into place. And here you can see it looks pretty finished here on the outside, and we'll have access to it all the time whenever we need power. The other thing that this Powall inverter came with was a remote control panel, which we decided not to use. It clicks in with a Cat 5, you attach it into the front of the panel, and then you run it to here, and you could put this somewhere else in your RV for turning this on and off. We figured since we were installing it so that there was always access here, we don't really need this because we can just turn it on right here with the access we have. If this was locked away somewhere in a pass-through or under the bed and you didn't have easy access to it, then this could be really helpful. Next to my batteries, I have drilled a hole that leads into the pass-through. The same hole in the pass-through goes here to this hole in the ceiling, which then runs straight across here through this channel, will come down here and pass down below to get to the batteries. It is time to start dealing with the battery cable. So I've got two 4-gauge cables. Obviously, one's red, one's black. You want to try to keep them straight that way. You can buy all black and then just color code it on the ends, but it's just always better to keep things straight. So I stripped the edges of the wires, have them ready. I've got terminal connectors here to go on, and have to, oops, get that, every little wire in there. And now I'm gonna crimp it, and slide a cover over it, a shrink wrap cover. If you have a heat gun, that would work well, but a propane torch will work also. Just down here. And there we go, one down, one to go. All right, I'm back in the pass-through. I have my cables run into the compartment where the batteries are going to be under the bed. I've got about 25 feet of cable here. I'm only going to need about a 10 or 11 foot run of cable, but I'm using it all for now just to be certain. Here's a trick for getting the cable to run through your pass-through area wherever you're running it to. I have a bolt tied to a long string here. I'm going to put it up in my cable run area. I've got a really strong magnet. And I'm just going to pull it slowly right across my run area, and there's the string on the other side. Now I can just take this, tie it to the ends of my cord, feed them through, and then just pass them through and guide them through my run. It's out the other side. Now all I have to do is pass the rest of it through to take up the slack. In the end, I don't want anything to be pulled tight. Remember, this is a rolling earthquake, so we want a little bit of give so that as things flex, there's a little bit of space for movement. Now, from this side, I'm going to pass the cables straight down here through my nose, and they'll come out at the bottom. And here you can see underneath the RV where they're coming back through. So I'm just going to finish pulling out the rest of that slack, and then I'm ready to wire them into the main wiring of the RV. I've traced all my batteries back from the old battery, and I've disconnected everything. I've unhooked my shore power, I've unhooked the truck, I've unhooked the battery, because from this point forward we're working with electricity and nobody wants to get shocked. So I've detached all of my battery cables from the frame of the RV, traced them all back and loosened things up, and then I remembered something. We need a battery shut-off switch, which we had on the old battery. I just forgot about that step.
Why do you need it? Well, because if we're winterizing the RV and we don't want to run the batteries down over the winter, it's cold so they won't charge below 32 degrees, and we don't want to just keep running them down with the thermostat or other things that happen that just drain battery, the CO2, the carbon monoxide detector.
Now, one thing I did learn is that you should have them at a full charge before you shut them off.
Right. You always want your lithium batteries at a full charge. They discharge really, really slowly, but as temperatures are super extreme, really, really cold or really, really hot, it does make them discharge a little bit faster. So we do want a battery disconnect. I've moved it to a place that I think is interesting, but one of our rules in our RV is that before we do any drilling, especially permanent drilling, holes in the RV, we both have to agree on it. So we decided to go ahead and put the battery shutoff switch right here in the nose, but that means I had to drill through this fiberglass, which made me a little nervous, I'm not going to lie. Fortunately, the size of this shutoff valve is the exact same size as a doorknob drill. So if you have that drill that you use for doors to drill a door mechanism, that's the same size. I think it's a 2.5-inch drill bit. So I already had it. So I drilled the hole there, drilled holes for the screws, attached the screws. Now we need to go inside. I cut my wires here, and now I'm going to put new terminal ends on this to run it into the battery disconnect along with the tongue jack, which is already just set in place. And then I'll run another one out to go back to my main power for the RV. I have finished up all the wiring to my battery disconnect, and now moving outside, the next thing in line that I need to do is connect my red positive cable to the frame for my ground. And fortunately, that has already been done for me here with the red coming in on the old cable. So I'm just going to disconnect the old battery cable and reconnect a new one. I have my last connection terminal post put onto my positive wire, and I'm hooking this into my frame for my ground. The other cable that's here, the black one, is coming from the emergency braking system that's on the trailer. It was already there, so I'm leaving it there. And now I just have to screw this down onto the terminal and then run my neutral line. This next part is actually the part that I've been dreading the most, because I have to get into my main power supply area right here. I've been in here before and I know what a rat's nest it is. I've loosened the screws. We're going to take the cover off, and you'll see it's kind of just a jumble of wires, and it's really a tight spot. So I was not looking forward to this. Here's where I attach my new battery cable to the frame to ground it. Then this positive came out and went into all of this to connect it to the RV. So I'm not replacing that because I don't really need to. Here's my original negative. So that's what I have to dig in here and figure out. And there it is. All right, so if I trace this black neutral line in, it comes in and it's bolted right here. So fortunately, that means I'm not going to have to worry about untaping all of this and reconnecting all of this. I just have to pull this one bolt out and then put a terminal, take out this black, put a terminal on my new black and bring it into right here and bolt it in. I have my new battery cable with the terminal on it. Got it in place. I have my power to the RV in place. Now I just have to get that screw lined up. I just have to pack all this back into place, get it all to fit in, and we're ready to cover it up and then hook up the batteries and test the whole thing out. Before I connect my batteries to the RV and get everything hooked back up, I need to go in here to my converter, to my electric panel. There's a little switch in here
that I have to flip. Right now it's set on lead acid. I need to flip it over to lithium to show, because the computer in here needs to know that I'm on lithium batteries versus lead acid batteries. This is another thing that I had to install in order to do the lithium upgrade.
I think we are ready to connect the batteries to the RV. Hopefully everything works well, and at this point I don't get myself shocked or start a fire or blow anything up. You never know.
In other words, this is YouTube. We are not experts.
I'm not an expert, just screwing things together. All right, it's time to connect the batteries. I can never remember if it's red first or black first every time I Google it, so I got my label maker out, and I made myself a label: connect red, then black, disconnect black, then red. And I am going to...
It's the smartest thing to have.
Put it right here on the battery so that I am remembering the next time what in the world I should do.
All right, let me get in there and get that. Oh, that's okay.
All right. We are connecting our batteries in parallel so that they remain 12 volt. And I want to connect opposite ends together. So I'm going to start with the red, and I've got my inverter and a battery cable, and I'm going to go into the red.
Well, a label can only help so much.
So I'm going to put that on, and screw it in and tighten it down.
Now, is the inverter something you have to manually turn on?
Only if you're using it. Now I'm going to connect my positive battery to the RV and bolt that down. All right, next up, connecting the neutral or the positive here. So since I have the inverter going into this battery, I want the inverter coming into this battery so that I'm running opposite. That way the power is flowing through both batteries, not drawing only on one battery. So I'm gonna put that on there, put that on there. Okay, and now I'm going to take...
Ooh, we have power. Holy cow, lights just came on.
Okay. Now...
Well, we know the batteries have a charge. We have lights.
Now everything is connected together. So the reason the power came on before I got it connected to the second battery is because I was holding it together. So the power was already running through just the one battery. Now it's running through both batteries. Obviously, we have power, so hot diggity. Now the only thing I need to do is turn on the inverter and plug something into it to make sure that the inverter is working properly. But we now have lithium batteries on our RV. Now that we have all the batteries connected and power running to the RV, I noticed that there was a little blinking yellow light in here, and I don't like blinking lights. So I came in to check this out. By the way, while I'm here, I'm going to take this panel off. I've disconnected these two little screws, which should let me take this panel off. So what I had to replace here is the power distribution center, which is this. This is the power converter with distribution panel. So I had to take out this unit and replace it, and I had to replace this whole control panel. Really a super easy thing to do. It's just a matter of disconnecting these, reconnecting them in the same order. Take a picture before you disconnect them so you know what order they go in, and then connecting two cables from here into the breaker box.
So why do we have a flashing light?
So why do we have a flashing light? Well, apparently we're supposed to have a flashing light. So I did some research online. I did not call WFCO, who's the company that makes these. I didn't call them on customer service to find out. The manual doesn't say anything about a flashing light. The yellow light over here on this side is telling me that I'm on lithium-ion, and you can see the Li down there below. You can see the little Li below the yellow solid light. Beneath the flashing light, it says LA for lead acid, which would also be if you had a gel battery. That light is flashing and blinking. There's no explanation as to why it's blinking. It's just that it should be blinking. That's normal. Apparently, if I connect shore power, both lights are going to turn solid and there won't be blinking. So it's not something to be concerned about, apparently. It's just the way it's designed to show that it's active, I guess. What's annoying and frustrating is that when I put this panel back on, I've got this little yellow blinking light showing through my panel. So I might go in and take a piece of black electrical tape and put it kind of right here, just so that that blinking light doesn't show through my electric panel, because when it's dark, I like for it to be dark, and I don't want to see yellow flashing lights, which tell me something is wrong, and it's not. Now here's the deal. You never see anybody talking about lithium batteries without also talking about solar. I can be completely done right now. All I've done is upgrade my traditional lead acid or gel battery to lithium batteries. These batteries are going to charge if I'm plugged into shore power. They're going to charge if I'm plugged into my truck or my tow vehicle. So I could be completely done right now, and all I've done is extend my battery life, which is great if you're boondocking. I cannot run my air conditioner. Right now, all I have is my regular 12-volt power. Now, I can connect a coffee pot or a hair dryer or other small electronics to my inverter and run my inverter, and then run those products off of my lithium batteries. So when we're boondocking, when we're not connected to shore power, we can run anything we want to run through this inverter that would require 110. So we're set up for boondocking, and again, the batteries will charge themselves through shore power when I hook back up or when I attach the truck and drive away the next time. Well, there you have it. The project is all complete. Now, since we shot the last part of the video, we have made a couple of little tweaks to the system. First of all, I did add a couple of zip ties here just to hold these cables nice and sturdy. I did also put in one more round of washers in here just to make sure that these are really nice and tight and that they're not going to wiggle at all. Now, we did hear some comments from people about concern about heat down here under the bed. And even Newpowa reached out to us and said, hey, sometimes it may not be the best to put them under the bed. You need to be aware of your temperature. So one thing we did was that we actually did a temperature check. We were in the RV all weekend, last weekend, traveling. So we did check it in the afternoon when there was no air conditioning on. And I used the temperature gun. I checked outside and inside, and the temperature was exactly the same inside the bed compartment closed up as it was outside the bed compartment, and it was a really moderate temperature on a day that was in the upper 80s. So we felt like that's probably not really going to be an issue for now. When we add the charge controller, that may be a different story. So another thing that we did here was I got two little furnace vents
on this side,
and I cut a hole into the side of the wall here and just pop these furnace vents in. I've got some command strips on the inside of them just to hold them up into the wall. It's a real snug fit. I don't think they're going to pop out. If they do, I might just have to zip a couple of screws into them. But now with those vents open, and I'll just leave them open all the time, it does allow air to circulate in here, so that will help regulate the temperature a little bit. If it starts getting hot under here, at least the air will have somewhere to migrate. Other than that, we are all set. Two 100 amp hour 12-volt batteries wired in parallel, 2,000 watt pure sine wave inverter that will allow us to run things like a coffee pot, a hair dryer, the TV, anything we plug into it. And so far we've had great success with them. However, we are going to go ahead and do a solar upgrade so that we can charge and run from solar power. And that's what you're going to see in our next RV helpful hint and modification video. Check out that playlist up above. Make sure that you ask us any questions you have. Every rig is different and I'm not an expert, but I'll try to give you a smart opinion if I can.
If he can't, I'm sure someone else will in the comments.
Check us out next time. Thanks for taking today's adventure.